A warm welcome to all history enthusiasts. Today we delve into the intriguing events of the Cold War. This was no ordinary war, but a prolonged period of major geopolitical tension that gripped the world for almost half a century. The main players? Two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, each commanding a bloc of nations, and each striving to outdo the other in a global chess game of power and influence. This era was characterized by proxy wars, where the superpowers battled it out on foreign soils without direct combat. A nuclear arms race, where the threat of mutually assured destruction loomed large, and propaganda campaigns, where each side tried to win hearts and minds at home and abroad. The Cold War was indeed a unique chapter in our human history, filled with intrigue, subterfuge, and the constant global tension. If you're as excited as we are about this journey into the past, don't forget to subscribe and share our video. The seeds of the Cold War were sown in the aftermath of World War II. This marked a turbulent period in history when two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, found themselves at odds, not on the battlefield, but on the chessboard of global politics. At the heart of their contention were stark ideological differences. The United States, championing capitalism and democracy, believed in individual freedoms and market-driven economies. The Soviet Union, on the other hand, rooted in communism, advocated for state control and collective equality. These contrasting beliefs fanned the flames of mistrust and suspicion, laying the groundwork for the Cold War. Adding to the tension was the division of Germany. Post-World War II, Germany was split into four zones, controlled by the United States, Britain, France, and the Soviet Union. However, disagreements over the future of Germany further deepened the divide between the East and West. The Western Allies wished for a democratic, economically stable Germany, while the Soviets aimed to keep it weakened and under their influence. This dispute culminated in the formation of two separate German states in 1949, the democratic West Germany and the communist East Germany. The ideological battle soon took a strategic turn with the formation of military alliances. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, was established in 1949 by the United States and its Western allies as a collective defense mechanism against the perceived threat of Soviet aggression. In response, the Soviet Union formed its own alliance in 1955, the Warsaw Pact, consolidating its dominance over Eastern Europe. What started as a clash of ideologies soon transformed into a race for global dominance. Both superpowers, armed with their respective alliances, aimed to spread their influence far and wide, setting the stage for a prolonged struggle that would shape the world in ways no one could have anticipated. Thus, the stage was set for a prolonged struggle for global dominance. As the 1960s dawned, the Cold War had begun to heat up. The clash of ideologies between the United States and the Soviet Union had already set the world stage for a battle that was anything but cold. The tension was palpable, and the stakes were high. Let's delve into some of the key events that escalated the Cold War to its zenith. First off, we have the construction of the Berlin Wall. In 1961, the world watched as the German city of Berlin was physically divided by a wall. This wall was more than just a physical barrier. It was a symbol of the ideological divide between the West and the East. It represented the clash between democracy and communism, freedom and control, hope and despair. The Berlin Wall stood as a stark reminder of the divisions that the Cold War had created. Moving forward, we arrive at the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. This was a confrontation that brought the world to the brink of nuclear war. The Soviet Union had placed nuclear missiles in Cuba, just 90 miles off the coast of the United States. For 13 nerve-wracking days, the world held its breath as negotiations took place and military forces were on high alert. The crisis was finally resolved with an agreement that saw the removal of the missiles, but the fear and tension it generated were unforgettable. Then we have the Vietnam War. This conflict was not only a civil war within Vietnam, but also a proxy war between the United States and the Soviet Union. It was a testing ground for the ideologies that each superpower championed. The war, which lasted from the mid-1960s to the mid-70s, was a tragic chapter in the history of the Cold War. It resulted in massive loss of life and left a nation scarred. These were some of the most tense moments in human history, with the world on the brink of nuclear war. The Cold War was a time of fear, uncertainty, and division. Yet it was also a time that challenged us to reflect on our values, our ideologies, and our place in the world. Despite the tension, periods of détente offered a glimmer of hope. As the Cold War narrative unfolded, a series of negotiations between the United States and the Soviet Union began to shine a light at the end of this long, frosty tunnel. These talks, known as the Strategic Arms Limitation Talks, or SALT, aim to curtail the manufacture of strategic missiles capable of carrying nuclear weapons. The first SALT Treaty in 1972 was a significant turning point, showing that even amidst deep-seated ideological differences, the two superpowers could cooperate for the greater good of humanity. Later in the 70s, a remarkable diplomatic achievement furthered the thawing of the Cold War. The Helsinki Accords, signed in 1975, were a multinational agreement between 35 countries, including the US and the Soviet Union. These accords emphasized respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms, furthering the cause of peace and mutual understanding. As the 80s rolled in, a wave of change swept across the Eastern Bloc. The rigid structures of communism began to falter, and the seemingly impenetrable Iron Curtain started to show signs of wear. In the late 80s, the Baltic republics began to demand independence, setting off a domino effect that would eventually lead to the dissolution of the Soviet Union. In the winter of 1991, the Soviet flag was lowered for the last time over the Kremlin, symbolizing the end of the Soviet Union and with it, the end of the Cold War. This marked a seismic shift in global dynamics as the world moved from a bipolar to a unipolar system. In 1991, the Cold War officially ended, leaving a lasting impact on international relations. The world had changed, and the ripples of this transformation are still being felt today. The Cold War may be over, but its influence lingers. This ideological and geopolitical struggle between two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, marked a significant chapter in world history, and its echoes can still be heard in the corridors of global politics, culture, and society. The Cold War's legacy is one of complexity and contradiction. It was a time of fear and uncertainty, but also a time of remarkable technological advancements. The space race, for example, a direct offshoot of Cold War competition, propelled humanity into a new era of exploration and discovery. The moon landing, satellite technology, even the internet owe their existence in part to the Cold War. In the realm of politics, the Cold War reshaped the international landscape. The establishment of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, and the Warsaw Pact formed alliances and divisions that persist today. The Cold War also gave birth to the concept of proxy wars, where superpowers flexed their military prowess indirectly through smaller nations. Culturally, the Cold War seeped into every aspect of life, from literature and films to music and fashion. It gave rise to a genre of spy novels and movies, underlining the era's obsession with espionage and secrecy. Even today, these themes continue to captivate audiences worldwide. The term Cold War itself has become a part of our lexicon, a metaphor for any prolonged state of political tension. It was first used by British author George Orwell, who warned of a Cold War in his essay, You and the Atomic Bomb. The term was later popularized by financier and presidential advisor Bernard Baruch during a speech in 1947. The Cold War, a significant chapter in world history, continues to shape our world in ways both subtle and profound. It serves as a stark reminder of the power of ideologies, the danger of nuclear arms, and the potential of humanity when faced with extreme challenges. We've journeyed through an era of tension, conflict, and eventual resolution. We started at the genesis of the Cold War, a time of ideological struggle between the United States and the Soviet Union and their respective allies. We delved into the height of the tension, marked by proxy wars, a nuclear arms race, and propaganda campaigns. We then navigated the thawing of this conflict, leading up to the significant event that was the collapse of the Soviet Union, signaling the end of the Cold War. The legacy of this era, however, is far from concluded. The impact on international relations and the cultural references to espionage and nuclear warfare continue to shape our world today. The Cold War, a term first used by George Orwell and later popularized by Bernard Baruch, was not just a period in history. It was a testament to the power of ideologies, the resilience of nations, and the indomitable spirit of humanity to navigate through periods of intense conflict. Thank you for joining us on this historical journey. Stay curious, stay informed, and until next time, farewell.